Hello and welcome back to News and Brews. I am this moment's host, Jim Mayer. I have with me today Dave Rizak from Resonetics. Did I say that right?
You got both of them correct.
Man,
Name and company.
I am 2 for 2 on interviews today so far, Dave. Thanks for being here, man. I could give a bio on you. I could tell everybody who you are, but you know you better than anybody else here. So why don't you tell everybody listening who Dave and what Resonetics is?
Sure. And first of all, thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate. Love the format, the theme, and everything like that. So we're excited to be here. Should be fun.
Thanks for being here.
So Dave Rizak. I'm an engineer first and foremost, I guess. Sort of came up through the industry, so I came to Resonetics via acquisition.
Okay.
So I founded a company called Distal Solutions, engineering design consultancy focused almost exclusively on interventional, catheter-based product development.
Okay.
A lot of structural heart, neuro, that type of thing. We were acquired in 2021, so we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary. And sort of through that, led and built and sort of grew the design services leg of the business. So Resonetics, broadly is large multinational, over 3,000 employees. I think we just ticked up to 19 sites. It's a big acquisitive platform, right?
Yeah.
So lots of capabilities. And when they acquired Distal, that brought on sort of the design services division, right?
Okay.
So vast majority of what Resonetics does, specialty component processing, laser-based micro machining, some really cool stuff, honestly.
Yeah.
But we didn't have, design engineering as a service. So that brought that in, and I helped to sort of scale that operation. So when they acquired my company, we were about just over 20 people.
Okay.
Now we're 3 sites and approaching 150. So it's been one more acquisition in there, but sort of helped to scale and harmonize the design services function. And then just recently transitioned a little bit more over to sales. So sort of led it operationally for years, and now
Very
going
cool.
back to the roots of talking to customers more.
Very cool, man. And those sales engineers are very unique individuals because you've got...
I mean, all engineers can be kind of unique individuals, let's be honest.
Fair, fair. All right, we can have that conversation
That's a
over a
separate
beer
talk.
later, yeah. Dave, talk to us about some of the biggest challenges that companies face when they're bringing these advanced devices to market, because I think that's something that is a little unique to this
Sure.
world, right? The
Yep.
med device world.
Yeah, for sure. So we work with a lot of startups, right? It's one of
Sure.
our primary demographics, and they're living the front lines of this industry, right? So they're going through funding cycles and everything. We've worked through. We're pretty familiar with that, right?
Okay.
So we're able to kind of work through those resourcing slumps and everything. And one of the advantages working with a company like ours, if you're going to spool up a whole team internally and really resource that from an engineering and technical perspective, that's a lot of overhead that you need to keep steady runway for, right?
Yeah.
And we can sort of dial up and dial down. You've got on-demand expertise, on-demand facilities, right? And so, this virtual model has kind of validated itself with that. But so, funding cycles is probably one of the main challenges, and we can kind of help customers by turning that spigot on and off for sure. The other is, technology access, right? I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that I think Resonetics really differentiates on is just the core technology is so strong, the bedrock of laser processing and everything, and everything's getting miniaturized, right? No, think of all of the potential procedures. Nobody wants a bigger whole place than they need, right? So everything's driving smaller, smaller, smaller. So, if you can sort of manage the funding cycle, adding value to those key inflection points for your business, if you can, if you have a partner that's sort of pushing the envelope of the technical needs, getting smaller and smaller and seeing where you're going, doing technical road mapping, and then ultimately it's just that access to expertise, right? So putting that all together in a rapid iteration model that's what we're trying to, the lightning in the bottle we're trying to catch for our customers.
Awesome.
Right?
I love that. And I mean, on the surface, not knowing a whole lot about Resonetics, it sounds almost like a PE firm, but less private equity than what private equity does to a lot of companies. You've been
Sure.
through an acquisition.
Yep.
Is it fair to call Resonetics a private equity? I mean, let's build that baseline right
I mean,
here.
we're definitely on the, we're a contract service provider, right?
Sure.
We don't have any of our own products. It's, we're no competitive elements or anything like that. And we're owned by private equity, right? So we're private equity backed. But I'd say we're we're closer to, or service provider is really the right term type of thing. The piece, we work with a lot of incubators as well.
Okay.
So I guess in a way, like we're probably most incubator adjacent, if you will,
Sure.
right? Because we're kind of helping foster that ecosystem, a lot of the front end work. So that's more how I think of it.
Awesome, awesome. You mentioned 20 employees when you were bought, right?
Yeah.
What was it like, through that acquisition process of your company, and
Yeah.
what did it mean for the people that you employed for
Sure.
however long you had employed them leading up to that acquisition?
Yeah, it's a big decision, right? Like,
Yeah.
you kind of, you own something, you run it, you build it, feels like your baby, and then you, and it came to us, we weren't looking for it.
Sure.
It was actually an interesting, we would always work with the cutting edge vendors, find the best technology for laser cut tubing, right? Was a Duro laser out in Davis, California.
Okay.
Marker Bands was Metalec in Switzerland, right? And all those companies kept getting acquired by Resonetics. So our supply chain kept consolidating, right? Which told us, a couple things. One is like, okay, Resonetics has a good eye for tech, right?
Yeah.
And, we're sort of becoming a bigger customer there. So we kind of got on the radar that way. And, I honestly came to the deal as somewhat of an acquisition skeptic. I had been through it before, not as a founding member, but, and it's hard to do right, So I did a lot of reverse diligence, if you will,
Yeah.
and try to really, assess culture and fit and philosophy and that kind of thing, and found a good fit within Resonetics. And I think, there's a strong reputation out there for good reason. So one of the major points of pride, I've been with it for 5 years post, and it's not a common founder story, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, I think turnover, retention is a key sort of bellwether, if you
Yeah.
will, for the health of something like that. And we didn't have our first voluntary turnover of the team that came over. It was 18 months before we had our first voluntary turnover, and it was someone that, dream opportunity, wish them all the best, couldn't deny kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good sign to the alignment that was there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And the opportunities have grown too. We've had folks transfer internally, so Agile to some folks are running Lightspeed labs now and everything. So it kind of expands that side. Sorry.
No, that's where I was going to go. Is this has got to provide a lot more opportunity for some of the people within your original organization that may have said, well, this role is neat for now, but
Right.
where does my career go? And now that it sounds like they have like a career pathway ahead of them. Is that true?
For sure, and it's the opportunity to kind of do almost rotational type programs and everything, and this stuff you talk about, it's not formalized yet per se, but so we've had people transfer through, and as you know, this industry is so tight knit, right?
Yeah.
That like you got to be taking the long view, and so we the contract development space fosters a lot of great experience for young engineers.
Yeah.
And so we spin people, like a lot of folks that leave, Resonetics or Agile will go to future customers, right? They'll go to a startup because they've got that entrepreneurial itch they need to scratch, and they'll come back and it's all sort of this big ecosystem type of thing. But definitely expands that internally for the team.
I love that.
Yeah.
What keeps you up at night right now, right? What are some of the things that are pressing for you in this industry?
Yeah, so I think I would focus on the funding cycle dynamic, right? We saw, 2021 was a definite peak, right? There was
Right.
a lot of activity and everything like that. So down into a trough in 23, arguably, and we've been kind of working our way out of it. But, that makes it pretty tough on the customers, in particular the startups, right? Because they've got to extend their runways and so on. And so, as part of the support ecosystem, you're really trying to tailor yourself, like, okay, what's your customer-defined value, right? You want to be very attuned to the pain they're feeling. And so I think we've had to be more conscious and aware and savvy to the funding cycle dynamics than ever before, type of thing.
So funding cycle dynamics is not necessarily like what I hear when I'm at a trade show like this,
yeah,
right?
interesting.
That isn't the top of mind issue that a lot of manufacturers are thinking about, right? They're thinking about capacity, they're thinking about workforce, they're thinking about supply chain. How does the funding cycle affect those three things?
Yeah, that's probably, that's a bit of, from my perspective, where we sit on the platform is pretty bleeding edge, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of the early stage stuff. Customers will come to us and sometimes they don't even say, hey, I've got a solution I need to implement. they say, I found a problem worth solving, right? So you're really starting at kind of a napkin sketch side of things.
Got it.
And in that front, you've got to say, okay, you need to get to a critical prototyping milestone or whatever to help them meet a funding inflection point, right? Or valuation inflection point for the business. So it's a little bit of maybe the blinders I have, in our business. But really, for Resonetics, it's about trying to make a responsive service that's capital efficient, right? So the whole Lightspeed lab model is where you can come and do lab days and get dozens of iterations done in a day, right? Rather than so rather than all the back and forth remote and everything. So we'll host lab days where you can rent all the equipment, rent engineering and technician time, dedicated. You come, customers will bring their simulated use models or whatever it might be, and literally say, okay, try this. It's a little too soft. Make this end stiffer, or whatever. And you're just churning stuff all day long. So there's a lot of testimonials out there that really accelerates things.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a game changer. I don't know how common that is in the industry, but it sounds like a major differentiator for you all.
We think so, and we've seen folks attempt replication at times, but I think we don't see anybody else that has it at scale that we do across the the technology offering.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah. So, Dave, how can people here find you? It's not the last question. I just want to get this out there before I get cut off or hooked off stage. How can people find you and Resonetics?
Yeah, all the common channels, decent social media presence and everything like that. So we're all over LinkedIn and everything. We just launched a new website, so reformatted, updated. So go check it out if you haven't been to the Resonetics website recently. You haven't seen it. And try to be accessible via all the usual LinkedIn and everything like that.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. So going back to some questions here about acquisition, you told me right before we came up here. There's a current one. Talk to us about that newest acquisition.
Sure. So some pretty big news, and we were glad we were able to get it in ahead of the show. A lot of buzz around MD&M and everything. But we've recently signed a deal to acquire Resolution Medical, which is large-scale sort of premier development partner in the Minneapolis area. Only so much we can kind of talk through. It's early in the process. It's signing, not closing. It's got to go through FTC and everything, right? So we want to be very respectful of all that sequence. But we're really excited about it. It sort of extends the design services. It's sort of a doubles or triples down from a scale perspective on that side of the business. And it's something we really believe in, are dedicated to working with startups and getting new novel therapies to market. I mean, that's a lot of people's passion. It's easy to sort of get behind that. They've got a great emphasis in the bioelectronics space, and so it actually kind of stitches together. Resonetics has core technology in implantable batteries. We recently acquired manufacturing rights and IP from MedAlly, which is IPG manufacturing, that type of thing. And then with the addition of Resolution, it will really bring a pretty full service offering around bioelectronic space, which we believe is a strong market to grow in going forward.
So is there anything that Resonetics can't do in the medical bio space?
It's a good question. We're not big in capital equipment. We make our own capital equipment for our laser house, laser units and everything like that. But in terms of capital equipment development, like hospital hardware, we dabble in that in pieces, but we're generally a high-tech disposables type of company, right? That's probably it.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a complete integrated vertical partner for anybody in the medical and bio space. Is that a fair?
That's the idea. I mean, so the tech and that vertical integration, I think, is really compelling. The value propositions there, it sells itself type of thing. But in the end, like everybody else, we've got to differentiate on service, right? Yeah. So we're really trying to sort of keep our eye on the ball with that, and speed, quality, value. Those things never go out of style, regardless of what you got, right? So
awesome. Yeah. Dave, is there anything I didn't ask you before I kick it over to my homie over there?
I don't know. What are you serving for beer later? What's your favorite brew in the News and Brews offering?
So it depends on the day, right? So I am on a day like today that is going to be a marathon. Like I'm going to start drinking early and it will go on for a long time.
Yep.
On those days, I'm like a Coors Light guy. Like I need something that just tastes like beer but isn't going to really mess me up.
Okay.
If I sit down and like truly enjoy a beer, I like a good IPA every now and again. Right. I like a good brown. I love a good Guinness, right? But I can't drink more than like one or two of any of those, right?
Nice.
So it's a marathon. What about you?
I'm New England guy,
Ah.
and so IPA is probably my choice.
All right.
But same one. You gotta pace yourself sometimes.
Absolutely. Those things are brutal after a while. All right, Dave, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us for this awesome interview with Dave Rizak from Resonetics.